Sports Talk. I'm your host, Tim Deep, and I'm here with my regular crew here today. Caleb Harrell to my immediate left, Mike Spires to his left, and the one that's still left, Jacob Harrell. Guys, good morning. Glad to see y'all this morning today.
Good morning, everyone.
We got a lot going on this morning, guys. First of all, though, we do want to thank Merchants and Citizens Bank for letting them use the facilities here for our podcast. Also want to say thanks to Merchants and Citizens Bank for being a great sponsor of Sports Talk and a number of events. We sure appreciate it. Telfair Chamber of Commerce, want to thank them. Also, Paula Anderson for a great podcast we did with her just recently. If you haven't had a chance, check it out. A lot going on in Telfair. Deep and Deeper Cleaning, if we're a really deep clean, see me. Also, want to thank Riles Drugs. Last week, Riles Drugs, we had our podcast from, and unfortunately, we had technical difficulties, guys, beyond our control. Riles, we're coming back to you, so we'll look forward to that very soon. But again, we have a lot going on, as y'all know, in the world of sports, locally, statewide, and nationally. And that locally is going to be fun. But we got a couple of news updates for us for Trojan News. The Telfair tennis team girls made it to the Elite Eight, as most of you know by this broadcast. They lost to Tryon, but congratulations to the girls team.
Great season.
Wonderful season. The boys tennis team is in the Elite Eight, and they beat Tryon, so now they play Baconton this week on Monday, May the 7th at 11 o'clock in the morning. Call in sick and go watch the Trojan tennis team play.
And that's out at the recreation department.
Thanks, Mike. That's at the recreation department here at McRae Helena. Also, the Lady Trojan golf team, great season, y'all. They're in state tournament, state finals. They won the area tournament. Again, the senior golfer, Mary Beth Schlins, got the low medalist in that. They now advance to the state tournament at Lake Oconee, May 21st and 22nd. And I know these girls are going to play some good golf. And I know the coach, Michael Schlins, always loves golf, so he's going to enjoy those 2 days of tournament action and a little golf, probably, if he can squeeze it in himself. Mike, I won't tell anybody. Also, we want to send a shout out to the golf team members, Lexi Lode, Mary Beth Schlins, Elena Towns, and Sarah Nunn. Congratulations, girls, on a great, great season. We're very proud of them. I think if we're going to look for a word to describe our first topic of the day, gentlemen, controversy. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on. You know, this morning we should be talking about the Trojans having either defeated Lanier or hopefully not having lost, but what happened to the season. But we're not able to talk about that. What in the world happened, guys, to Region 2A baseball? There was no rain. Why was it postponed?
Well, just a little bit of a controversy. Unless you've been like Snow White and asleep for a while, or hiding under a rock.
Yeah, or living under a rock.
You probably have heard about the controversy surrounding the Georgia High School Association playoffs in one classification only, and that is Class A Public, which of course is where Telfair competes.
Exactly.
And of course, this controversy involves two of the teams from our region, Region 2A. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, you can honestly thank our friends down there in the swamp for postponing the whole entire tournament.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So what was the basis of it, guys? What's mad? Who's mad? Why are they mad?
Well, correct me if I get something wrong here, Mike, but it was basically Charlton began to take legal action against GHSA for making them forfeit a game in which they broke a pitch count rule, thus costing them the region title. Apparently, the first time that they were notified by GHSA that, of course, they broke the rule, the punishment was a fine and a suspension of the coach, I do believe.
Why don't we go back to the very beginning? What happened was back in March, Charlton was playing Lanier County from our region in a region game, and they defeated Lanier, but as Jacob just said, they broke the pitch count rule. Now, there's some controversy as to when this got reported. Supposedly, Charlton self-reported what happened.
And that would have been probably in March?
Back in
y'all
March.
saying, okay.
And supposedly from their side of it, they were told that there would be a fine, as you said, and a suspension for the coach, and then that would be the end of it. Supposedly, and again, I'm noting this supposedly because none of this is like public. This is all, speculation from message boards, but it's pretty reliable information. Supposedly, there was an email from Georgia High School Association that said this would be the end of the matter. So, as you know, the season went on. Charlton and Irwin finished both with a 14-2 region record, and Charlton had defeated them twice, was the region champions. Season ended, and then that Sunday night power rankings came out, as they always do.
Right.
Teams have 24 hours to appeal, so we had the appeal process. And then in the appeal process, as you noted, they went back and made them forfeit the game against Lanier.
Now,
Yes.
do y'all know who did the appeal to bring this forward?
From what we've
Or
been
do
able
we know
to
officially?
from what we've been able to piece, and this has appeared in some of the articles. I mean, there's been like 3 articles on this, mainly from the AJC. The Chattanooga newspaper has had some good information because, of course, it's out of state. Tryon
Right.
and Gordon Lee are both located up there in that part of Georgia where the Chattanooga area covers sports. So, and the Valdosta paper. So, but from what we can gather, Irwin County,
I thought, wasn't it
Filed
Irwin?
the appeal,
I think it was
yeah.
Irwin that did file the appeal because they knew of the broken rule. So they filed it again, and apparently GHSA then turned around and made them forfeit the game. Apparently they didn't see that their prior punishment was fit for breaking the rule, so they thus made them forfeit the game, leading into a loss of the region for Charlton, making Irwin the region champion and Charlton falling in the rankings. Thus, but also they did not fall out of the top 8. They still got that first round bye, but by all means, the punishment that they got for forfeiting that game is fit, but also I can see why they're mad. But, I mean, you should have just made them forfeit the game in the first place.
that's where the issue, because
Yeah.
wouldn't you agree, Caleb, that they should have been consistent? Because back in March, there were some teams in some other classifications, I believe Cedar Grove, or one of those teams that had to forfeit.
Yeah, I agree with with y'all's points, but I think with Charlton is now a 5th seed
Mm-hmm.
and Irwin 2nd seed.
Mm-hmm.
My thing would be, you have first round bye.
Exactly.
When what is there to argue?
Yeah.
And that's my opinion.
Yeah, folks, we're not talking about whether this would have affected them getting in the tournament. We're not talking even about that they lost a bye because of it. We're simply talking about a side of the bracket where they would have to make a road trip in the next round potentially if they got past the first round. And look, somebody's got to travel.
Exactly.
True. Well, let's ask this question though. I'm getting ready to play.
That's
a little
Stephen A.
I'm ready to play a little Stephen A. Smith here. All right. If you look at it, when the original punishment came down in the email, is it in the bylaws that say if you violate the pitch count, you get a suspension, fine, and forfeit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, GHSA on the email apparently, if this is reliable, said you got a fine and you got a suspension. Nothing was on forfeit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, all of a sudden, out of the blue, at the very end, oh, by the way, you've got a forfeit. It's all in the timing. It's almost like, and I'm arguing on behalf of Charlton, don't shoot me, Irwin fans, or anything along that line, just for the sake of playing devil's advocate here.
Right.
It's almost like a double jeopardy in a way to delay that punishment without saying enough. On the email it reads suspension, fine, and further punishment to be announced. There's no argument, But if they didn't put something on there that, hey, you're going to forfeit, I'm not suggesting Charlton shouldn't forfeit the game, but boy, that sure is that's kind of an interesting way to present it. And look at the timing, y'all, right at the end. you know, of the season. You think you may have it, and then boom, you don't, and so I can see, what are the message boards between these various counties saying? This is an interesting point, guys, because
Well-
if they get to play each other, this could become quite a rivalry, guys.
Well, Mr. Steve, I will say this, and then I'll let Mike talk about it more because he's the one that's been reading most of them. Well, let's just say the first message board that come out referred to Irwin fans as, quote, weasels.
Yes.
Yeah.
That actually was on
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah,
messages.
It's
one
on
of
the message board.
They literally started referring to the Irwin fans and the team, or whatever you want to say, as weasels. And basically, I mean, I'll go back and make another argument saying that, of course, Mike said somebody's got to make a road trip. And of course, they're now in the side of the bracket with Gordon, Lee, and Sly County. Some
Right.
of the other
Tough
talented.
teams.
That's probably the tougher side of the bracket. But by all means, I mean, I don't see where there should be any complaining. You're talking about Charlton County coming out of the toughest single A region in the state in all our opinions. I mean, they're one of the best baseball teams in the past decade that I would argue, really.
Yeah,
Good
what,
point.
two state championships,
Yeah.
was it 14 and 15 back to back?
Yeah.
And multiple region championships. Yeah, it isn't like, okay, you didn't win the region this time. It isn't like you've never had a region championship trophy in your case.
It's not like they don't have a single shot to win this. I mean, they've got just as big a shot as we have to win this.
Oh, yeah, and they've got a couple of good pitchers.
I mean, they have
in the past.
probably the
Absolutely.
best pitcher in Class A.
Right.
I mean, that some people may debate, but I mean, from what we've seen, from having to face him the last few years, I mean, a young man that Gorson Jack Gowan, who's headed to the University of Georgia, and you know, yeah, I agree with Jacob. I mean, what are you scared of?
But on the message
Exactly.
boards, the Charlton message boards, are they pretty rough towards Irwin? They
Oh,
both are-
it's ugly
It's-
across the board.
You see, this is the sad thing, guys.
Very
What we're-
sad.
What we're looking at is baseball. We're looking at
High school baseball.
High school baseball. You're looking at young men ages 14 to 18, 19. I guess I'm not sure what the age limit would be. But I mean, you're looking at guys that are playing, and at this particular point, whether you agree with Charlton, whether you agree with Irwin, you know, the ultimate goal here would be to let these guys play. And it's unfortunate that it's happened. And I hate it for these guys because, you know, hey, if it was delayed much longer, it could go in and affect some graduations. Mike, you and I were even talking that it could still get appealed again because I believe the article we read said it could go to Supreme Court if there's another appeal. And that's not going to happen in 2 or 3 days. That would take a little while for them to make a ruling, you would imagine.
Yeah, this
so
is
what
the-
can happen here with some of these kids that graduate?
That's a good point because we've already been delayed, and I guess we need to update that their Court of Appeals did basically
The rule in favor of GHSA.
favored
didn't it?
GHSA
Yeah.
yesterday. And so if Charlton accepts that verdict, moves on, playoffs, of course, will resume Monday, 4 p.m. here at Trojan Field, Telfair and Lanier, as well as the rest of the Class A public, if Charlton doesn't file
An appeal.
an appeal.
Which they
And-
could, I guess, on Monday.
And they could. Yeah, I mean, here's another thing. I don't know if you noticed this. The Charlton went back and tried to put some of their own spin after they were getting such backlash. The school superintendent there says that the injunction never said that the playoffs were to be halted. That the injunction said that the playoffs were to go on as scheduled, and that it was GHSA did that. Well, if you're GHSA, wouldn't you have to suspend the playoffs?
You're
I
exactly,
mean-
and you're exactly right. I mean, if Charlton is filing this appeal, that they shouldn't be where they are,
Mm-hmm.
and that they need to be moved up into a higher seat or wherever they think they should be. I mean, nobody else needs to continue to play. The tournament has to be stopped. You cannot play any baseball.
Exactly. I mean, they're trying to put it back on GHSA, but GHSA had no choice.
Exactly. You know, y'all made a good point there. It's, you know, it's almost like a blame game.
Exactly.
It's almost a blame game. And you know, if the you know having to forfeit the game was done at the beginning, would we have this?
We wouldn't be
argument,
having this
or will we have this
discussion.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
really,
Yeah.
there's a little blame here.
Oh, there-
for-
there's
for
definitely.
everywhere here.
And
you know.
it's an ugly look for everybody.
It is, and again, these things are being spread. I think in looking at the whole situation, let's look at it from a Telfair standpoint now. We've been off almost 2 weeks. We're waiting for this ball game to come. How does this affect preparation for Telfair playing Lanier? How does this affect other teams that have already traveled the 5 hours to their destination, then had to turn around, come back home? Now they got to go back. How is this going to affect, or will it affect, the actual play on the field?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a school system in Tryon that had already traveled to Tifton, ready to play this week.
You also think about Clinch County had also,
Yes.
they were on their way to Gordon Lee. They were on their way to Gordon Lee, and they had made it to Atlanta and were notified to turn around and go back home.
Wow.
Yeah, but also as far as the Telfair standpoint, I mean, with us being here, I mean, stationed at home, basically the only thing I could really say, you look at the good side of it, it's just more practice. I mean, you're not having to go anywhere. I mean, just basically report to the ball field, get some practice in, and go back home, rest up, come back the next day, go to practice again. I mean, really, it's just more, like I said, I'll reiterate the point. I mean, it's more practice, and I think it's going to do us good. But if it gets prolonged again, that might be to where you, of course, you're getting more practice, but you could also, on the other hand, start to get rusty as well.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
And I'll get Caleb's thoughts. I mean, you can only do so much fundamental work.
Exactly.
Exactly. You know, there's only so much practice. There's only so much, game preparation that you can make. And I think if there was any, struggle from the Trojans, it'd be the mental aspect.
I agree.
You come in and you're prepared to play Tuesday and possibly Wednesday, and then, you get the news, the game's canceled. So your mindset, has to change, and now, you're prepared to go Monday.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, guys. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and a good point you said too, as far as preparation, because Telfair and Lanier know each other so well, having play each other twice a year, and we've defeated them both times. So you know your opponent very well. So from that standpoint, I mean,
It's going to be
It's
interesting.
gonna be interesting.
It's going to be interesting to see. I look at it. I think that if you're looking at maybe what's going to be advantageous for one over the other, I think the home team is probably, like Jacob said, is going to have more of an advantage now because, as he said, you're well rested. You're not having to travel anywhere. There's no uncertainty whenever we play what's going to be right here. So it may very well be that these home teams maybe have more of an advantage. We talk about rust a little bit. Maybe after the first inning or so, that rust goes off and you're ready to roll the first time through the order. But it is going to be interesting to see, guys, what's going to happen here. And with this controversy, like Mike, you said, all of this is so much of it is speculation and message boards. I just hope that the fans of all the teams keep the kids first and all of this controversy second, because even though I'm sure this is going to stir that Irwin-Charlton rivalry a little bit in all sports, the bottom line is it's sports, and that's the way they've got to look at it.
Hey, Mr. D, just to make a side point to that too, and Mike, whoever wants to chime in, you're right, keep the kids first. And also, with them being on separate sides of the bracket, the only time that they will meet up is if they both make it to the finals. But also, you think with all this controversy, we keep saying the word controversy, in which that's really what it is, they hit the finals. I mean, just think what would happen if they meet each other.
Wow.
I mean, that's going to be on field and off field stuff.
And then
in the stands, call the National Guard.
There you go, but then you look in the next year now when
Yeah.
softball starts,
Yeah.
football starts. Is this going to be fresh in people's minds? And
People, fans do not forget. What's sad, and I know we got to transition to some
Right.
other topics, but this is almost like what you see on message boards in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah.
For example, when Ole Miss went through their issue with their investigation and the whole just vitriol between the Ole Miss and Mississippi State fans. I mean that rivalry was already toxic, and it's taken it to. I mean, we saw the things that went on during the game last year. Some of the fights that broke out, and I mean,
Keep it civil. That's
you know,
what we gotta do.
and we're talking about high school sports
That's
here.
right.
So, you know, from Irwin's standpoint, you know, I mean, there's some blame to go there. Maybe from a standpoint, I mean, I know you're trying to get a region championship. You didn't win it on the field. So there's
No, that's
not
a good
like you're
point.
really should be proud. I mean, okay, woo, we're going to get a region championship trophy. You got beat twice.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And honestly, I mean, there should be no ha-ha in your face laughing moment here for Irwin or whatever. And you're right, just to put it in other terms, you didn't earn this.
Exactly.
I mean, you didn't earn this. I mean, you basically got, I mean, I don't know the final scores to the games, but you pretty much, like I say, as talented of a program as Charlton is, you basically got schooled on a baseball field.
And like I
Yeah.
say, and it's unfortunate though that it had to be decided off the
Yeah.
field
Mhm.
because, and again, Irwin, very talented ball club as well. You know, Charlton, both great programs. You know, I just kind of hate to see it deteriorate a little bit into something more than just, hey, good old fashioned rivalry. And knowing there's a lot of good folks in both those counties.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
again,
yeah,
cooler
we're-
heads hopefully will prevail. But for right now, it sure is a heated topic, isn't it, guys?
It sure is.
Yeah,
Well-
real quick, do we want to update the bracket?
That's what I was gonna say, Mike. If you don't mind, kind of let's look at the brackets and kind of review that. as
I
we
tell you,
go
I'll
forward.
let Jacob run down the first side here.
Going into the second round here, we have Johnson County is going to take on Bowden. You have Pelham going to take on Sly County. You have Commerce taking on ECI. Tryon taking on Irwin. Taylor County going to take on Charlton County. Clinch County taking on Gordon Lee. Lanier will take on Telfair, of course, and Jenkins County will take on Bacon.
So guys, it's gonna be
and
good.
just a quick note to add, Tryon had already made it down last week, and it spent $2,500 on a charter bus
Wow.
and hotel rooms in Tifton for the Irwin game, only to have to go travel back up there and then have to travel back on Sunday night.
Get out the old Visa card, boys. We're traveling again. I tell you
So
what.
that will be interesting too. Could eventually some of these schools, when this all ends, say after the season, could there be a civil suit against Charlton to try to seek damages for some of
It's
these
possible,
expenses?
or since GHSA is the governing body,
And
you know, and the way they handle
This
it.
right here will be the last point I make before we transition into whatever next topic we're doing. I mean, I have read a couple of message boards that Mike has sent me. There's a lot of speculation saying that people should file a civil suit against Charlton for reimbursement of travel.
Wow.
Yeah.
I tell you guys, it's interesting. I don't know the legalities or how you could or if that would even be possible.
Right.
But it is. It's an interesting time. Speaking of interesting, we'll transition now.
Yes, yes.
Speaking of interesting, you know, last week, even though our podcast didn't come out, and so we're going to kind of redo some of it, the NFL draft held a little over a week ago came up with some very, very interesting and unique. We heard somebody just
That was-
came in.
that was
Seabass, wasn't it?
Seabass giving his thoughts on the controversy.
Oh, I was going to say, he better watch on Seabass. I knew somebody was going to be coming in. Where's the security in this place? Anyway, the NFL draft was somewhat of an interesting topic. Great thing going on. A lot of surprises, some not. Guys, overall aspects, overall perspectives about the NFL draft. I'll start by putting it on the table. Baker Mayfield, number 1 pick, Cleveland Browns. Yay or nay on that pick? And let's see what's going on with the draft.
Well, I mean, just to really start it off, I did not expect Baker to be the first one off the board, so that was a surprise to me. But I do consider it to be a good pick because I do believe that the Browns have gotten just that much better with the pick. As a quarterback, I love Baker. As a person, he needs to be improved, of course. And that's a lot of people's opinion. But also, you look at that entire backfield, Mayfield and Chubb now. I mean, you got to think that just improved the Browns a lot. Then you look on the defensive side of the ball with the Browns, they've got, is it Denzel Ward, I do believe, from Ohio State? who's
Yes,
the defensive
that's
back.
correct.
And then
a couple-
Myles Garrett
and
from a couple of years
Myles
ago.
Garrett, and also, I mean, just the Browns have, the Browns were really smart in this draft, and they got a lot of good picks.
They also addressed the offensive line in the second round. I believe it was the pick right before Chubb. I believe was the guard from Nevada. I believe, if I can pull that up.
Yeah, because their number 4 pick, I believe, was a cornerback.
Austin Corbett,
That's it.
offensive guard from Nevada. So, you know, they did some things. I'll still stand by what I said a week ago on our other podcast. I still believe, even though I've been critical of Sam Darnold, I still believe he was the safest pick of quarterbacks. If it's me, I take Saquon Barkley.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you still could have gotten a quarterback at 4. Because I just think Barkley is the overall best player in this draft. But I stick by what I said about Darnold, even though there's some struggles there. Caleb, I mean, who would you have taken if you were the Browns?
Well, I think I'll have to agree with you, Mike, because of there not being a front runner quarterback. I think if you would have took, like you said, Barkley at number 1, at number 4, you would had, you'd had all the quarterbacks pretty much still, probably there at number 4. So
Other than Darnold, who the
yeah.
Jets wanted,
Right.
you pretty much, because I still don't think the Giants take a quarterback in that situation.
No.
I don't
Right.
think.
But anyway, yeah, you had at least 3 there of your choice you could have taken, and maybe with Tyrod Taylor being in Cleveland, maybe at least a year under the offensive coordinator's playbook, year of adjustment, and then maybe that following year, whoever it was could have stepped in and become their hopefully franchise quarterback.
Well,
Tim, your thoughts?
You look at this thing, and Saquon Barkley, I think, would have been a great pick at number 1. And the reason for that, you put the Giants in a position that they've either got to choose a quarterback or they'll probably get that Bradley Chubb guy.
That's my thought. They
Yeah.
go with Chubb.
They would have got that. The Jets would have got a quarterback, and they were not going to take Baker Mayfield. So you could have got Saquon Barkley at 1, and in all likelihood, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, or Josh Rosen, any of these guys, you could have got them at number 4. So that kind of concerned me. On the other hand, when you look at the NFL rookie camps that have just now started, was listening to an interview with Hugh Jackson at Cleveland. He said Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield are like best friends. They came in, they were talking, that they're both wanting to help each other, bring each other up. And to quote Hugh on the NFL Network, I think he said, it was a beautiful thing to see those two working like best friends. And I'm thinking, that in the back of my mind tells me that y'all might have been anticipating a little bit of, I don't know, maybe a little bitterness, maybe a little problem between the two. So I think he's relieved. You go to Pittsburgh, Ben Roethlisberger, not real happy, or does not. He's very salty about the quarterback pick that the Steelers made in round 3. Have y'all heard about that a little bit?
Yes.
Is that typical Roethlisberger? I mean, the guy says, I'm going to retire in a year or 2. Then he says, I'm going to play 5 years. What's the deal with Pittsburgh here?
I can't see Ben lasting 3 to 5 more years. Not with the pounding he's taking. Now, somebody may disagree. What are your thoughts?
Well, no, I mean, at the most, I'd probably say maximum probably 2 to 3 more, maybe at least 2 more years. But you're right, he's really taking a pounding. I mean, you look at Tom Brady as well, another big foe of Ben Roethlisberger. Tom is in his last years as well, of course.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people refer to him in the acronym of GOAT, greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But by all means, I mean, Roethlisberger and also I'll throw in Brady as well, they're in their last years of playing as well. I mean, honestly, by the way that Roethlisberger has been acting, you think going into this year, is he feeling threatened that he's going to lose his job this year?
Yeah, I mean, and Jacob, to go back, when Pittsburgh played Jacksonville in the regular season and got pounded, which surprised a lot of people, myself included, Roethlisberger, after that game, even talked about contemplating retirement. Now, all of a sudden, he's upset about the fact that, hey, Pittsburgh drafted could be his heir apparent. That could be some interesting things. Guys, other things in the draft that you see, what about Roquan Smith going to the Bears?
Great pick for the Bears. I like that pairing. It will pair him with Leonard Floyd. Of course, it's already there. I think I heard this said. I can't remember which site. Might have been one of the analysts for CBS said this was the safest pick in all of the draft. I mean, Roquan has possibility. Very good. he has the potential to be the defensive rookie of the year in the NFL next year.
Absolutely, Mike. Again,
Without a doubt. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, as far as linebackers go, Roquan Smith really, I do believe, was the safest pick in the draft. But you also look at that Edmonds kid from Virginia Tech as well, and his brother also going off the board in the draft. But as far as from like sideline to sideline linebacker with speed and all, Roquan Smith paired with Leonard Floyd is going to be a great defense up in Chicago. And also, I do want to pose this question as well, first round as well. Your guys' opinion on the wonderful pick that the Falcons made with Calvin Ridley, and also this right here is just speculation among Falcons fans as well. I don't think he's going anywhere, but a lot of people got kind of scared when Julio Jones went to his social media accounts, started deleting all his Falcon pictures and unfollowing everybody. A lot of people thought that Julio may have been on his way out. So, I mean, thoughts about that?
interesting point.
It is interesting.
Two things. One, I think the Ridley pick is a great pick. I think it's going to help them offensively, though I'm like Mike, we were talking before the show, we definitely need some offensive line help.
Yeah.
But as far as the Julio, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Julio was disappointed with the overall year last year.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this is an attempt on his part to say, okay, my focus is going to be football first. And if it is, which it wasn't in the past, I'm not saying it wasn't, because the guy's a tremendous talent. He's a great student of the game, heard nothing but good things. But I'm wondering if he's in that perfectionist mode and he knows he's in his mid to late 20s, that he's going to say, I'm not going to have any distractions this year. If Julio is doing that, that's the reason he's got rid of that social media. And the $30 million man or the $100 million man, Matt Ryan, they connect better than they did, because obviously last year was not a great year offensively, though they were top 10 team. They still just didn't click like we thought. I think the rest of the league better be on notice. If Julio's just says, I don't think I had that great of a year, I'm putting everything else to the side, and I'm going to have the best year I had, then barring injury, that man may hit close to 2,000 yards receiving this year, guys. Y'all's opinion?
But I think the last phrase you used, barring injury, I think that's what makes this Calvin Ridley pick so important, because of Julio's injury struggles.
Great point.
Exactly. Who better for Calvin Ridley to learn from a former Crimson Tide member in Julio Jones, who is
Good point.
One of the best to me in the NFL now.
Mm-hmm.
And also, let's not forget too, as well. I mean, he's underestimated, but also at the same time, he's not that underestimated. Think about the former Rutgers player, Mohamed Sanu,
Right.
who has made himself one of the best receivers in the NFL as well. So he's actually got two guys to learn how to be a great NFL receiver from.
Two things with Ridley. One, he played with quarterback Jalen Hurts, I believe it was. And, yeah, he got some numbers, but that's more of a running quarterback. Whereas, of course, that little freshman that killed us in the championship has been there, who knows. But then the second thing is, I'd heard, I don't know how confirmed this report is, but I'd heard that before the draft that Calvin and Julio, believe it or not, had worked out at Alabama. Not anticipating that Calvin will be there, but Julio is an Alabama person and Calvin is an Alabama. But, I think they ran into each other, worked out some together and all that, so it was kind of a nice pick, that those two guys are going to be able to be there. So, and Ryan usually has a little off-season thing. I don't know if he had it yet or not, where he gets receivers and everybody together. So it'll be interesting to see, what this team does. Other teams in the draft, guys, that y'all see that really maybe improved themselves. I know, Caleb, you and I, we were talking last week at Riles, but I think you like the Colts and what they did.
I do. I think from their first pick, they addressed a need. It was offensive line. Got a young kid from Notre Dame, Mike. How you pronounce his last name? McCleary or something to that.
Yeah, I'm going to get that.
Anyway,
pulled
got
up here.
him. Then they got offensive lineman, I believe, from Auburn. So it's two offensive linemen to keep Andrew Luck upright, which is what
They got to.
what has been missing the past couple of years of Andrew Luck's tenure with the Colts.
Okay, their first pick it was the 6th pick in the first round, Quentin Nelson,
Quentin
the
Nelson,
guard,
that's correct, that's
guard
correct.
from Notre Dame.
And that's
yes.
actually Matt Ryan's cousin. Just a little fun fact.
Is
to
that
throw
right?
out.
I didn't
It's
realize
just
that.
a little fun fact to throw out there. That is actually Matt Ryan's cousin.
Wow.
But also, I mean, just to throw it over, and I'll let Mike talk about this same point as well if he wants to. One team, and I'm not saying this just because of us all being Dog fans, but also Mike posed the question in the previous podcast, or this may have been on or off air, I can't remember. But I mean, what is it also with the Falcons not actually? If you would think that they would try to keep some Georgia players in state, but also you look at Bill Belichick, who loves him some SEC players.
He does.
And he loaded up on a couple of SEC players, including 3 dogs.
Who were a couple of them, Jacob?
You
if
look
remember?
at for the offensive line, they addressed the tackle loss of Nate Solder with Isaiah Wynn.
Yep.
You look at the the running back.
Sonny Michel.
They picked up Sony Michelle, and also
Great
with
pick.
the third dog was it John Atkins or which one was it?
That
Was
I'm
it-
not sure.
And I may be wrong, Jacob, correct me. Wasn't it Belichick that took a Georgia player, put him at center?
David Andrews.
David Andrews.
Yeah.
Who was not even drafted.
He wasn't even drafted.
I mean, that just
And he
says-
started.
Well, you know,
so-
I tell you that, but the third dog that Belichick picked up was also just like David Andrews. He did not draft him, but they signed him as an undrafted free agent. His name is slipping my mind right now, but he actually filled up with 3 dogs right now. So I mean, honestly, Belichick and also Josh McDaniels as well. Just that whole coaching staff loves the SEC.
Apparently,
Yeah.
they really do. Mike, from your opinion and all, what team really maybe, or teams maybe
Well-
had the best draft or improved themselves?
I look at a couple of things. I think as far as one outstanding pick in the first round, the Denver Broncos, no-brainer.
Oh, yeah.
With Bradley Chubb, pairing him on the other side of Von Miller.
That's dangerous.
I really like what the Detroit Lions did. I think Frank Ragnow, the center, the offensive lineman from Arkansas, I think that was a great pick. And also, they got Kerryon Johnson, the running back from Auburn. I think that's gonna definitely help them. Give Matthew Stafford a running game complement, so that the pressure is not all on him. Great pick by the New York Giants in the third round was Lorenzo. Was it third round that Lorenzo Carter went?
I believe so. Third round with Lorenzo Carter.
And Mike, I didn't know he went to school at Clemson.
Yeah, that was.
I honestly could not believe that, Mr. Deep, honestly, because
How?
they read his name off the card as they go into Clemson. I mean,
Oh, I mean,
It
you know,
was-
well, he'll always be remembered for that. Maybe they'll send him an honorary
Mike,
degree.
this right here is a very interesting pick as well at number 19. This is one guy that a lot of NFL analysts talked about as a one-year star. I mean, I honestly want to see Leighton Vander Esch from Boise State go to America's football team, the Dallas Cowboys, and prove himself to be a good linebacker.
Oh, I tell
Yeah,
you.
Caleb, a team that stood out to you.
Well, like Mr. Steve had mentioned, to me it was the Colts. I think they, addressed offensive line needs and defensive line needs. And, to me that's where it starts. It's on your offensive line and your D line.
Oh, no doubt. And I tell you another pick that I thought was a first round pick, and I know we got a transition. I think the it's hard to say Los Angeles Chargers because I'm so
Oh,
used to San
man.
Diego. I think this was a steal getting Derwin James,
Yes.
the Derwin James, the safety from Florida State. It was hard to believe that he was still on the board,
On the board there.
at that point. So I
Well,
think
guys, real quick, on the New Orleans Saints side, of course, that's one of my biggest rivals, but they have been criticized for their first-round pick in that they had to give up a future first-rounder for, I believe it's a defensive lineman, and then maybe they gave up too much on that. I don't know, guys. They usually say that you give up a first-rounder or so to get a quarterback. Did New Orleans pay too big a price, or is this going to be worth it for them?
Well, I go back to something you said last week, that this may be a sign that the Saints feel like they're that close to competing right now. Because this kid, Marcus Davenport from University of Texas, San Antonio, he ran one of the fastest times of a
Right.
defensive lineman at the combine. So this guy's going to give them an edge rusher. I mean, Atlanta's been put on notice.
Absolutely.
Our tackles, this guy's going to be a handful. And also another division rival, and we talked about this last week, the Tampa Bay Bucks
Oh, their first
getting
round pick.
Tua, Vita Vea, the big defensive lineman
Oh,
from Washington.
a
He's
beast
just
is
an
what they
absolute
say.
beast.
Exactly. Go back to the Saints pick just real quick. You know, got Marcus Davenport now, but Cameron Jordan, who was also with the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's two guys that it's putting a lot of pressure on the offensive line for the Falcons, and same thing with the Bucks.
And I hate to say it too, Caleb, about New Orleans. They were just a missed tackle away from the NFC Championship.
That's true. That's
and
true.
playing Philadelphia, I know Philadelphia had a great run. I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I'd have probably put it on New Orleans to beat Philadelphia at Philadelphia because
Yep.
that it was a good ball club. So, yeah, I hate to admit it, but New Orleans is close.
Nope,
You know,
there's no
and
doubt
Drew
about it.
Brees' window is closing, so they want to get him something before. So it's going to be a great season. Speaking of great seasons, Mike, I know you said we need to transition a little bit.
One
Go
quick
ahead.
note, let's update some other Georgia players. 'Cause
Oh,
we said
yes,
Lorenzo Carter to the Giants. We had Nick Chubb going to the Browns, as we mentioned. Sonny Michel to the Patriots, along with Isaiah Wynn. I think a steal by the Chicago Bears getting Javon Wims.
Just fine with yes.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. Jake Fromm's best friend on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
I think, like you said, Mike, I think it's a real good pick. People, I think with him coming from JUCO, people didn't know a whole lot about the guy. But I think throughout his senior year, playing it and advancing on and making it to the national championship, they're like, hey, this kid's good. And I think he'll be a huge benefit for the Bears.
Guys, y'all may have checked it, and I haven't. Any numbers on about how many Georgia players were drafted compared to some of the other teams? It had to be a pretty good number of Georgia players drafted. I didn't catch that number.
I don't think 10 were
No, it wasn't
drafted.
10.
But now undrafted
got-
too, I
I-
think we've had
I
a
think
number
you're
that
right.
have signed with teams
You're
too,
right.
haven't we,
I want
Mike?
to say there were 5 or 6 Georgia players that were actually drafted.
So that's a great
That's
number.
a great
I mean,
number.
and these were what, Mark Rick's players, a lot of them?
Some of them, oh yeah, you actually
Then-
had a couple of them were.
So just think in the next couple of years, nothing against Mark if he's watching. But again, with all that Georgia has been doing, you're going to start seeing even more Georgia players, don't you guys
No
think,
doubt.
coming into the
Oh, yeah.
NFL draft?
Oh yeah.
No doubt.
You know, speaking of Georgia,
Can we hit on one more thing?
yeah,
real
man,
quick?
go ahead.
Real quick with the Falcons, the 2nd and 3rd pick. Just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
mention this. I like the corner from Colorado. His dad was a former track star and decathlete. This kid,
And who is that, Mike?
Isaiah Oliver, the corner from Colorado, 27 tackles, 2 interceptions, 13 passes defended. Competed for the Colorado track team in the decathlon. Two-time All Pac-12 performer, so he should be a heck of an athlete. And then you got the big defensive lineman from South Florida, who's got really good quickness for a big guy. Ran a 5.16 40 at 6 foot, 314 pounds. This guy had 178 tackles, 23 and a half tackles for loss, and 7 sacks in his career there at South Florida. So I think both those 2 good picks for the Falcons. And also an interesting pick, a running back from Southern Miss.
Yep, and give us the little background on his first name, Mike. It's interesting. And a guy that could be a good player for the Falcons.
Ito, is it Jackson?
Let's see, Ito Smith.
Ito
is what I
Smith
have.
from
Yeah,
Southern
running
Miss.
back out of Southern Miss.
Little bitty guy, and his grandmother named him after the famous Judge Ito from the O.J. Simpson trial because he was born around the time that trial was going on. So very interesting there. But some good picks for the Falcons.
And that's one of those picks too that, next year I think Tevin Coleman will be coming up on his contract year, or Devontae Freeman may suffer an injury, who knows. So this could be a kid that slides into one of those 2 running back slots if he shows a little bit.
Yeah,
So-
and can catch the ball out of the backfield.
So boy, it's fun, y'all. Football's coming, but now we got about 15 minutes left in the program. I know all of us went to the G-Day
Yes.
game. Impressions on the G-Day game. What you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like. How does this bode for the future, guys?
We'll let Caleb go first on that.
Well, like we all have said, the future is already bright, but it's getting brighter to me. I think what I'm gonna give one take away from the game, I'm impressed with Brian Harrigan. His ability to catch the football,
Yes.
which with a little bit I heard throughout the draft process, they kind of questioned Sony's and Nick's ability to catch the ball. Well, more Nick than Sony, but I think you saw that Georgia running backs can catch the football, except for maybe Elijah Holyfield.
But he
Which
can
is
pound
something
it.
he's got to work on,
Right,
no doubt
right.
about it. Good point. Yeah, because we really didn't throw the ball to the backs
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
No, we didn't, and honestly, I've just got a hunch that we'll see that a lot more this year. I mean, just to kind of mix up the playbook. Well, one takeaway that I really liked, I mean, I was really impressed, of course, coming into this year. Kirby made it very clear in his post-game conference that I was impressed with Justin Fields, but, and this is in Kirby's words, he was throwing against the twos, of
Exactly.
course,
Right.
but also you had Akil Crumpton. I was really impressed with him. Jake Fromm, Jake did good, but of course we all know he's better than what he did in GD, and of course he even said that in his post-game conference. He said, I'm not impressed with how I did. I can do much better, and we all know that he can. You also look at one guy that we didn't really see a whole lot of at all was Riley Ridley, and Riley should be a big part of this year's team as well. To me, I'm really expecting him to fill in Javon Williams' shoes this year to make those big catches.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, it's a different day. I mean, he had the one touchdown catch in the late second half. And if he holds on to that ball early in the game where we were holding our breath that he might have had a serious injury, but thankfully it wasn't, then that's 2 touchdown catches. His day looks a little better. But yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see the emergence with him. Another kid that stood out to me was over on a couple of guys on the defensive side of about Monty Rice.
Yes. Oh,
With
yeah.
14 tackles. I mean, I know he played with the second string a lot, and DeAndre Baker. I mean, this guy is he is the definition of a shutdown corner.
Yep.
He is.
I mean, if you throw to that side of the field,
You're just flat crazy.
you're crazy.
Yeah.
And that was good
As
to
Auburn
see.
found out in the second half of the SEC championship game last year. I mean, this kid will be an All-American corner, I believe.
As far as players that did not play, DeAndre Swift, I believe, was one. What impact, even though obviously he didn't play, what impact do we see him having this coming year as a sophomore?
Oh, my
I mean,
goodness.
honestly, you look at him as a freshman and what he did as a freshman, and all you look at the SEC championship game. I can remember that 60-yard touchdown run that he had that pretty much got every Georgia fan in the building up on their feet, and everybody watching the game up on their feet. Really, if you heard Scott Howard, his famous call was DeAndre Swift ran all the way back to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And I like Brad Nessler's call as well. He's this guy is fast. He's fast, and he's maybe gone.
There you
And
go.
he
I mean, by all
obviously
means,
was.
of course, but by all means, what Swift did this year, his expectations went from here to here.
It's-
By all means, and also with God, what's his name? Number 3, the guy that came from South Carolina. His name is slipping my mind.
Zamir White.
Zamir.
From North,
I couldn't
is it
remember his
North
first.
Carolina or South Carolina?
North Carolina.
Yeah.
His first name slipped my mind, but Zamir White, of course, coming back from an ACL tear from his high school playoff
Right.
game, but also they said he's around 85-90% now. So by the season's beginning, he should be ready to go. I mean, he's around Todd Gurley size, but once he gets in there and the first time he hits the field, I think he'll make an immediate impact.
Yeah, and then we got James Cook, Dalvin Cook's little brother, coming in.
Well, we've seen what Dalvin done at Florida State, and if James is anything like his brother, hey, that's the third running back.
Yeah, I mean, the running back core is loaded in. And talking about Elijah Holyfield, I mean, right now, because I would think that even though White is, coming from this injury, Cook getting there later, you got to figure that Harrigan or Holyfield's probably going to be number 2 on the depth chart. Right now, I would put Brian Harrigan at 2. I mean, I think Holyfield's, we saw glimpses last year, but Holyfield has got to step his game up if he wants to be be in that rotation a little bit more.
And I think Holyfield will. I mean, he looks like he's put in the off-season work. If you've seen some of the pictures of this guy, I mean, my gosh, I believe it used to be in the weightlifting magazine or something. I mean, my gosh. So the guy looks like he's really put the work in. You know, one quick thing, you know, I know that there were a few folks that left the G-Day a little disappointed in Fromm's performance and were kind of pumping up Fields a little bit. Guys, there's no quarterback controversy,
No.
is there?
No,
I can't imagine.
I'll go back to what I said, one of our second or podcast maybe. Jake Fromm's your starting quarterback. Justin Fields will play, I believe. I believe you'll have to find spots to play him just because of the skill set he has. It's
Right.
too good.
Exactly, Mike, and to talk more of both y'all's points. Fromm's one of those that takes a poor performance, not necessarily poor, just an off performance. I'll put it that way, and take that and run with it and build off of it and create an even better sophomore season compared to his freshman season.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, guys, we have about 5 minutes left. Mike, do you want to go in and maybe give some updates on maybe either some Georgia softball, Georgia baseball, some things along that line?
Yeah,
And then,
we'll just do some like brief updates.
and then Jacob, I know you coming in, you want to talk a little bit, quick thing on the
Yeah,
Braves.
just a little
and
quick, because I
and
do.
we gotta
yes,
concentrate on them some
I mean,
next time.
because I do have some good numbers on them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just some notes. Last night, Georgia lost in softball, a tough one to Ole Miss, as Mary Wilson Avant, who of course is trying to fill the shoes of Brittany Gray. She went 4 innings, doing pretty good. She had given up 3 runs. All 3 were earned. Kylie Bass came on in relief, but Georgia lost the game to Caitlin Lee, the outstanding pitcher from Ole Miss. And Georgia's still going to be fine, but with this loss and the Florida win last night, unfortunately, the Gators did clinch the regular season SEC championship. So, but Georgia just needs to stay focused, keep going. They're going to host a regional, going to host a super regional if they win that. So, they still got the SEC tournament ahead next weekend.
Right.
And, barring a collapse, they're going to be the 2 seed. So they've beaten the Gators 2 out of 3 this year. So look for that. Georgia baseball still doing well. Big win over Missouri last night as the Dogs pulled that one out.
Oh, and Mike, there is one little point about the Georgia baseball team. I can't remember if it was last night's game or maybe the game before, but big Adam Sasser. You
Yes.
talked about him. Adam Sasser going 4 for 5, 3 home
Three
runs
home
and
runs.
6
Wow.
RBIs in that one game. I mean, awesome power. I mean, he's got power to spare.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Georgia's series started on Thursday night. So Thursday and Friday, they've already taken the first 2 games of the series against Missouri. Have another one today, and so they look good. Looking definitely a regional host, possibly in the mix for a super regional. If they could get in one of those top 8 seeds. So keep an eye on that. They'll take on Missouri again today, and in fact, I'll be going up to SunTrust Park Tuesday to watch the Dogs and Jackets in the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Classic. So
fantastic. And you got
Georgia going
beautiful
for the
weather.
sweep. Yeah, Georgia has already defeated Tech twice, so going for the sweep there. And so Gators continue to lead the SEC. So Georgia has Florida next weekend and Arkansas the last weekend. So top 2 teams in the conference still ahead.
Some good baseball.
So they still got to play well, but they're obviously doing well. And so we want to talk about the Braves.
And I know, Jacob, we're going to wrap it up a little bit with the Braves. Is there some guy playing left field now that I can't remember his name, sarcastically speaking here?
I mean, by all means, they have called up the infamous, or not infamous, the famous now that he's here, Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, he has been putting up some numbers. I think he's batting around 350 or as of right now. He's got 2 home runs shots
Yeah, I saw that one against the Mets.
Yeah, we saw the one against the Mets, second deck shot, but by all means, I mean, the numbers that I have on these guys right now, they could have changed at the very moment because these numbers were reported, I think, 2 days ago, but according to what I have, Acuna's 10 hits through his first 6 games as a Brave are a Braves rookie record. The Braves lead the NL in 6 categories. They lead the NL in runs, hits, doubles, batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage. They are tied in the majors for the fewest strikeouts. Freddie Freeman and Ozzie Albies are tied for the most 2-base hits in the majors. Let's see, and Ozzie has the most first-inning home runs in the MLB. And Mike Soroka, who they called up the other day from AAA, is the first rookie to win his debut against the division leader. And in that series versus the Mets, they did take the division lead.
I mean, that's great. They were 1.5 up. I know last night they lost to the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, still probably at least I would guess a half a game
Yeah.
up, if not a little better, Mike.
But another exciting thing last night, our newest Brave,
Yeah.
Jose Batista, first at bat,
Hits one
double
of-
to center field.
Yeah, and I think he hits it right off the center field wall. I mean, and even Alex Anthopoulos, the new GM from this past year, he actually said once Jose gets here, he said, we're expecting like raw power from him. I mean, and we all know how Jose did with the Blue Jays. I mean, he like we said with Adam Sasser with Georgia, power to spare.
Exactly. Caleb?
But I'm gonna take a point or take a side of like with Mr. Deepman with Charlton. To me, I'm a fan of Jose Batista, but how do you pull Ryan Flaherty out of the lineup, who, you know, for a while was the leader on average for the Braves? I mean, how do you pull him out?
It's a tough call. I mean, there's no doubt. But it is a good problem to have,
Right,
having
yeah,
him
yeah.
now with a bat coming
And-
off the bench
And
as
don't
well.
we have a third baseman down on the farm that's going to be coming up pretty soon?
I
Or
believe
Yeah,
so.
Is it Ruiz, I believe, or is that?
Yeah, they do have a kid named Rio Ruiz, but also their next biggest star that they're calling, his name is Austin Riley, who he's at AA, playing for the Mississippi Braves right now. He's hitting around 310. I checked his numbers the other day. He's doing good right now. If he keeps the trend up, he should later on this year, if not sooner, get that promotion to AAA. If he does good there, he should be on his way up.
One of the things too, just to hit briefly, and hopefully the next podcast we'll spend a little time with the Braves. I like some of the things I'm seeing from the pitching. I know that the bullpen still can be a little inconsistent when you got the young guys. I mean, the infamous Chicago game in 400 below weather and that type of thing. But, you know, this kid Sean Newcomb, I think he's the real deal. Fulton Lewitz, I hadn't got to see him much this year, but I assume he's been pitching well. I mean, you got. I'm not saying they're taking the place of Glavin, Smoltz, and Maddox, but by the same token, you got some real homegrown talent that if they continue to develop, it's going to be a fun summer. My question to you guys is: there's such a young team when they hit that first slump, or when they come into a little adversity. Do you think they'll have the poise and maturity to bounce from that and to continue to play some good ball this year?
That's the $100 million question right there, because you know that's coming. I think that's why I like having a guy like Jose Batista
Right.
and a guy like Nick Markakis there, some veterans, and a Freddie Freeman now who's been around a while.
And a Kurt Suzuki as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some veteran players to mix with this, but to set the example for these young guys.
Exactly. Well, it's going to be fun, guys. I know we only got about 2 minutes left.
And I'll
Go ahead,
say
Mike.
this: if they can get these bullpen issues straightened out,
They can
and,
make some
and,
noise,
and
couldn't
with the
they?
walks, this team there's no question they're playing so well against the division, which is where you're going to play most of your games against your divisional opponents. I mean, this could be a very fun summer. I couldn't help but think last night watching, man, this is fun. Again.
Yeah.
It's been so long since we've had the kind of Braves baseball that we used to see and
Oh,
what
yeah.
we were used to.
You know, just as a final point, I mean, y'all take whatever side, but honestly, I mean, if you look at that bullpen, if you're trying to fix a problem, you look down into the farm system. If you want to try to quickly develop either some good starters or bullpen people. Go look at AA, AAA, or wherever you want to look, and actually bring those guys up. If you have a starter that you're going to eventually put into the rotation, put him into the bullpen, improve the bullpen. That's where he's going to get seasoned, as for lack of a better term here, and then ease him into the rotation. If you get a great like you said, homegrown starter that
Right.
you're eventually going to put in there, put him in the bullpen, make the bullpen better, and then put him into that rotation.
And you know, Jacob, your point's well taken because salary cap issues and all of that, money-wise, Braves are probably a bargain team right now with all these young players.
Yes.
I mean, you know, when you think about it, you know, so they're really getting a lot of bang for their buck.
But I'll say this, as long as we have Ronald Acuna Jr., we can say Acuna Matata. No worries.
On that note, I'll go start. Well, let's start with Jacob. Any final thoughts? Any sports topic before we get out of here?
Well, I mean, by all means, we're all proud of the Trojan tennis team from this year. The tennis team did a great job this season, especially for the girls. Little fact here that I heard from Coach Brooke McKinnon about Mary Beth Schlinn's hardcore athlete the other day against Tron. She played 4 hours of tennis.
Wow.
And she played 4 hours of tennis, so that shows that she's a hardcore athlete. And also, she's doing a good job with golf. Maybe she can come in and go to the state golf tournament and get her a state title so she can close out her high school career with a bang. You look at talking about Georgia baseball and softball, they seem to still be on a roll. Let's see if they can go into the SEC tournament, go in there, probably capture a tournament title, go into a regional, a super regional, maybe go to Oklahoma City and also with Omaha with the baseball team. Braves, let's try to keep this going. Of course, they will hit us. They're prone. I mean, not real prone, but they will hit a slump
Sure.
sometime soon because that's with every Major League Baseball team. They're going to hit a slump. They just need to find their way out when they do hit it, and not just as a whole. I mean, this was a great show today.
Mike, final thoughts?
Final thoughts, I would say excited, looking forward to the playoffs this week and seeing how Telfair does. It's going to be a great time out at Trojan Field on Monday, provided we don't have an appeal. And but looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to going up to SunTrust on Tuesday and seeing this Georgia Tech game. Hopefully the Dogs can get the sweep, and so excited about that. And just excited about the Georgia sports in general right now. It seems that maybe they say winning is contagious, and what we've seen with the football program, now with baseball and softball starting to really take off, and Tom Crean is really out there with the basketball program right now, selling the program. I just think it's an exciting time to be a sports fan in Georgia again right now.
Crean has actually gotten his first verbal too.
Yes, that's
Fantastic.
correct.
Caleb, final thoughts today?
I'll take it from a high school level. Exciting times are happening right now for Telfair sports.
Absolutely, Caleb, I agree with you. I think we've even talked that in some ways the last 3 to 5 years have been almost like the golden
age of Telfair sports.
You know, it's been good. My final thoughts are very simple, just to say to everyone that watches our podcast, thanks for viewing. Thanks to the sponsors like Merchants and Citizens Bank, the Chamber of Commerce, Deep and Deeper Cleaning. But one of the things that I do want to just say, and I appreciate the people that do watch it, the Sports Talk shows were averaging anywhere from 50 to 100 views straight onto YouTube. The Deep Productions website has had over 2,000 hits, and we've only been at it for a little over a month. So to all of those of you that are watching, thanks. We
Thank you
appreciate
very much.
you know, for watching. Please, go to our sponsors. And again, to these three guys and myself, at this point, since we are just starting up the production company, we don't get paid money, but we sure have a good time. It's great having friends. It's kind of like a good excuse to be here on a Saturday.
And we couldn't do it without this man right over here.
I'm going to say a shout out
John
to
Deep.
John Deep, who is the camera person. Gave up his beauty rest to get here this morning. We appreciate that. John, you want to come on camera and show them how good looking you are? All right.
We should do a segment like they do on game day with the Bear.
There you go. We'll get him on there. But we appreciate you, John, because, again, it is a lot. He's has a busy schedule just like all of us. But, guys, like we say, our friendship is important. I appreciate it.
And one of these days we're going to get TJ on
There
here.
you go.
TJ, we're waiting on you now.
Absolutely. And to all fans of high school sports, just remember, number one, it's fun to be a fan, and it's fun to yell, and it's fun to have a great time. let's keep it civil and let's enjoy it.
It's all about, keep it about the kids. What was it Kirby said? Keep the main thing the main thing. And then that's the thing with high school sports. It's about the kids.
On that note, thanks for joining us, and so long.